verse 10, the queen, because of the words of the king and his lords, came to the banquet hall. So wasn't even there, wasn't even in the banquet hall. And the queen spoke, saying, O king, live forever. Do not let your thoughts trouble you, nor let your countenance change. So here she is, she's coming in. Now, some have suggested that this could be not his queen, but the queen mother, whether that is the queen under Nebuchadnezzar or under Nabonidus or one of the rulers, one of the leaders in the lineage that had lived before. There is some possibility of that found in other passages in 1 Kings, 2 Kings, Jeremiah, and others, where you see the queen mother having a very involved relationship in the government. Notice when it said father, talking about Nebuchadnezzar earlier in the chapter, Nebuchadnezzar was not Belshazzar's father, but he was Belshazzar's ancestor. And so father, queen, mother, you do see that there are some words that are used interchangeably sometimes, and so we kind of need to recognize that. So whether this is the queen mother or whether this is his direct queen, what you see is this woman coming to him, giving him some words of wisdom. Once again, I hear about this, I think about a later queen that's going to rule, talking about an Esther, and how she rules there under the time of the Persians, and the advice and wisdom she gives towards that king at that time, pointing back towards the God of heaven. And so what does she know, or what does she remember? Whether she's been told this or whether she witnessed this herself in the previous years before, what she remembers is a certain man. And she told him of Daniel there in verse 11. It says, there is a man in your kingdom, and who is the spirit of the holy God. And in the days of your father or ancestor, light and understanding and wisdom, like the wisdom of the gods, were found in him. And King Nebuchadnezzar, your father or ancestor, your father the king, made him chief of the magicians, astrologers, Chaldeans, and soothsayers. Now, if you remember back before, Gary has alluded to numerous times again that just because you are in charge of somebody doesn't mean you're one of them. This is a good verse that kind of points towards that, that shows he was more than likely just in charge of all these people, not necessarily one of them, especially as he excelled or was promoted there under Nebuchadnezzar. And so here he is, and it sees not only Nebuchadnezzar, but Belshazzar's father, that they have elevated him to be in charge over all of these men of wisdom. It says, inasmuch as an excellent spirit, knowledge, understanding, interpreting dreams, solving riddles, and explaining enigmas were found in this Daniel, whom the king named Belteshazzar. Now let Daniel be called, and he will give the interpretation. So here the queen, she comes and says, hey, you need to call Daniel. He's done this before. He can do it again. The connection he has to wisdom is like what she says is like the gods. Now we know this wisdom always came from God. It always came from the God of heaven. I found it very interesting how she recognizes his name and how she uses his name. She recognizes that he was called Belteshazzar, but then she goes on to say he's Daniel. Now Daniel is the only one of his close-knit friends that gets to keep his name in this land. Everybody else is known as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego instead of as their original names. But Daniel, obviously, he rises so far up that people still know him as Daniel. And I think that stands out for him, for his character, and for his God, and recognizing what he has done and is able to do with the help of God. Since the word father is obviously, as we said, uncertain, we kind of highlighted that in our reading. It's a little vague. Could mean father, can mean ancestor. And so just kind of understand that as we're going through this reading. Going on down to verse 13 to 21, we have to kind of speed up a little bit. Then Daniel was brought in before the king, and the king spoke and said to Daniel, are you that Daniel who is the one of the captives of Judah, whom my father the king brought from Judah. I have heard of you, that the Spirit of God is in you, and the light and understanding and excellent wisdom are found in you. Now the wise men, the astrologers, have been brought in before me, and have brought in before me. I missed my place. Here we go. It always happens. That they should read this writing and make known to me its interpretation. But they cannot give the interpretation of the thing. And I've heard of you that you can give interpretations and explain enigmas. Now, if you can read the writing and make known to me its interpretation, you shall be clothed with purple and have a chain of gold around your neck, and shall be the third ruler in the kingdom. And so here, as you see in verses 13 through 16, the same terms and conditions that were laid before the Chaldeans and other soothsayers and men of wisdom, it's the same terms and conditions that were put before Daniel. Now, I have a lot of questions about all of this. I have questions about the timeline in Daniel's life, because at numerous times you're going to see Daniel rise to prominence. And yet it seems like as other leaders come in, they forget all about him and he does it all over again. And time again, that's the kind of the pattern you see, that these people, that they fail to see or at least remember. They have very short memories when it comes to what Daniel has done and, more importantly, what God has done. But no matter the situation, so I just found that kind of interesting. Daniel rises once again, and he's going to answer here before the king. This is verse 17. He's going to give an answer before the king concerning this writing from his hand and the interpretation thereof. And the first thing he says to the king is, let your gifts be for yourself and give your rewards to another. Yet I will read the writing to the king and make known to him the interpretation. A lot of people have read this verse here, and they have really pointed to the fact that Daniel was a man of integrity. He was a man of integrity towards his God, but also towards this king. As far as he wasn't going to hold this king hostage, so to speak. He wasn't going to, try to work the system to get advancement, but he was going to be fearful to God. He was going to be respectful to God, and understanding that God's the one that truly, promotes and advances man. And so here you see Daniel is going to give this very noble answer before the king, that he's going to give the interpretation. Now, Daniel knows who's actually giving the interpretation. Verse 18, O king, the Most High God gave Nebuchadnezzar your father a kingdom and majesty, glory, and honor. So he's pointing him right back towards God. And because of the majesty that he gave him, all peoples, nations, and languages trembled and feared before him. Whomever he wished, he executed. Whomever he wished, he kept alive. Whomever he wished, he set up. And whomever he wished, he put down. But when his heart was lifted up and his spirit was hardened in pride, he was deposed from his kingly throne, and they took his glory from him. Now, Daniel has just honestly done a couple of things. One, he has spoken ill, or could be interpreted as speaking ill, of a former king. He's standing before a man that's giving him an opportunity to rise and to have a prominent position, and instead of just giving him what he wants, he's trying to show him something that's far greater. So Daniel, he speaks the truth about Nebuchadnezzar, about where his power came from, and about what happened when he got too proudful, that God humbled him, and that his glory was taken from him. That is something that I think that Belshazzar needed to hear in this moment. It says, then when he was driven from the sons of men, his heart was made like the beast, and his dwelling was like the wild donkeys. They fed him with the grass like oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of heaven, till he knew that the Most High God rules in the kingdom of men and appoints over it whomever he chooses. Daniel, honestly, in chapter 5 right here, is just pointing back to chapter 4 and what happened there in the life of Nebuchadnezzar. But then he turns his attention there back towards Belshazzar. And he says, but you, his son, probably his grandson, but you, his son, Belshazzar, have not. He's recognizing that Belshazzar was a self very dishonoring before God and before his people. It says there at the end of verse 23 that they have brought the vessels of his house before you, and